Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you.
Birthday.
Happy birthday, dear.
Holy mackerel if it isn't.
Happy
I'm 75 today.
Happy birthday, Grandpa.
Oh, boy, you're getting younger every day. Come on in here, Bill. Dad, how are you? Look for you, Dad. You're looking great.
What the Sam Hill is this?
It's a reading lamp for your room, Grandpa.
Well, isn't that something? The first lamp I used to read by burned coal oil.
Were you about my age then, Grandpa?
Just about, honey. Come here. I'll show you. Give me that album.
The old-fashioned album we got there.
Here I am. That's me. Would you believe it, Sue?
Yes, little Fred Wilson studied his lessons by the light of a kerosene lamp. He didn't know that a new age had already begun at Menlo Park, that during his lifetime, electricity would bring the greatest revolution that had ever come over the human world. Fred was a farm boy. There were more people on farms in those days, there had to be, because living muscle did most of the work of raising food for the country. From the days of the Minutemen, who were farmers themselves, the biggest percentage of Americans were tilling the soil. Within a few years, Edison's wonderful dynamos would change even that. When Judd, Grandpa's oldest son, was big enough to help on the place, the farm was one of the first in the country to be connected with wires from the local utility. And the miraculous power began to help with the chores. Judd himself has the farm now, and he alone does more work than Grandpa could have done with a dozen hired hands. Volume production through electric power has freed America from the soil. More people can go to work producing goods, because it takes less people working on farms to supply food for themselves and the rest of the nation. It is freedom to industrialize an agricultural country. That change had already begun to take place when Bill Wilson, Grandpa's youngest son, left the farm as a young man to work in the factory in town. When he got his first job, industry was not yet fully converted to the new power. He spent his days in a jungle of steam-driven line shafts. But before long, they had made the switch to electric power, and cumbersome blind shafts were replaced by individual motors on each machine. Bill has seen the great progress made through electric power. Now there is less effort and more pay, greater production, and better working conditions. Both Judd and Bill, to say nothing of Grandpa, had a tough time staying in school. They had to go to work at an early age. But Jimmy, Bill's son, will not only finish high school, he expects to go to college. And the school he attends is a far cry from the one his dad went to. It's a different world than Grandpa knew as a boy. The change has reached way beyond the home, farm, and school. Business and commerce, too, have been streamlined by electric power. June, who is perhaps Grandpa's favorite, has electricity to speed her work at the bank. When she goes home from work, she rides on a silent, gliding trolley bus, almost to her own door. The house is much the same shape as the houses the Minutemen lived in, but the door leads to a different way of life. Here, light, heat, and energy to help with the housework come in by wire. Electric power's performing other unseen jobs. The water faucets are connected with a modern electrically operated water treatment plant. The garbage disposal to an electrically operated sewage plant. The amazing part of it all is the fact that the electric power they use in their home costs less than it did when Bill and Ella were married back in 1920. All in a man's lifetime, electric power has changed the world. But what about the world that Fred Wilson's granddaughter will see? The world of tomorrow. Tomorrow will bring innovations like the heat pump, which electrically heats your house in winter and cools it in summer. Even in winter, there is always heat in the air, the soil, and the water below ground level. During the cold months, the heat pump withdraws warmth from outside to heat your home. In summer, it operates much like your electric refrigerator, withdrawing and expelling heat from the inside air to provide cooling comfort. And what of atomic energy? Chances are there will never be a handy home-size atomic pile in your basement. But experiments are already underway that point to atomic power plants like this. The intense heat generated in an atomic pile produces steam to drive a battery of turbine generators. Thus, the mysterious force of nuclear fission is converted into the familiar, flexible, electric power. Beyond atomic energy, there is another limitless, undeveloped source of power. The energy in sunlight falling on the U.S. daily is more than enough to supply all our requirements for food, heat, and light, to power our transportation and manufacturing. Today, we use sunlight stored in coal, once lush green vegetation, or the force of falling water, whose cycle is motivated by the sun. But locked in every growing plant is a mysterious process known as photosynthesis, nature's way of turning light into chemical energy. Science is patiently unlocking the secrets of photosynthesis, and we may well see an era wherein solar energy, like atomic energy, may be put to work as electric power. But there are electrical innovations long past the experimental stage. Look, already it is tomorrow. Welcome to an electrical home of the future, a new concept for living, whose elements are all practical possibilities now. Come in. Here is a living room with no wasted space. For centuries, the fireplace has been the center of attraction. So here we have incorporated the modern age point of interest, the television set. This room, like the rest of the house, is light conditioned. Carefully planned lighting based on research and installed with a relay-operated remote control wiring system. This inexpensive system permits starting breakfast coffee by pressing a bedside switch, turning off the radio with a switch near the telephone. Lights can be turned on ahead and turned off behind you as you walk through the rooms. Just off the living room is the electric kitchen, organized to save steps, time, and energy. The combination soda fountain and snack bar adjoins the electric laundry where clothes can be washed, rinsed, dried, and ironed. Incorporated in the snack bar is the electric sink with a disposal and dishwasher. Here is greater freedom from drudgery than ever before. Indoor weather of this new world home is provided by the heat pump. A concept of living for the future, yes, but all components of this dream home are being manufactured today. Tomorrow, they can be part of your home too. But for us, the wonders of tomorrow and the way of life we have achieved depend on freedom to build and grow, on the personal liberty that inspired the men of Lexington. But now our freedoms are threatened by forces that would crush our liberties and tyrannize the minds of men. Against these forces, we have the weapons of freedom: courage, faith, and the creative spirit. And we have the tool that built our way of life: productivity. America, with only 6% of the world's population, produces over 40% of the world's goods. How can such a small percentage of the world's people produce so much? Here is one important reason. Every worker has at his command an invisible battalion. Who are they? Listen, a 1-horsepower motor can do the muscle work of 17 men. In 1940, the average American worker had 4 horsepower of electrical energy, or the equivalent of nearly 70 invisible workers at his command. By 1950, 10 short years later, this number had more than doubled. There were on the job with him over 150 unseen workers, and the ranks of these invisible battalions keep growing. With this productivity, we can add to our freedoms and defend them. For the future, the challenge is clear. We must keep building our productivity to strengthen freedom at home and halt the tyranny abroad. If we are now able to multiply the efforts of every workman 150 times with only 8 horsepower of electric power, why not still more horsepower? Why not 200, 300, 500 invisible workers on the job? As the Minutemen laid down their plows and took up their guns at the first alarm, we too must guard for ourselves and for future generations the liberties that enabled us to build and grow. Today, freedom and power are woven together. The invisible battalions of electric power turn out autos and airplanes, household goods and guided missiles to preserve our freedoms for the greater world to come. But we are not a nation of destroyers. We are builders. Builders of new freedoms and more power for a new age. We stand on the edge of that new age even now, and the pioneering spirit, flowering in the air of freedom, will dream and build new ways to put electric power to work. Then in time we may come to know that the men of Lexington set off a chain reaction, burgeoning down the years to make this world a freer world for all mankind.